Today I'm reacting to your wrestling hot takes. This is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your current thoughts, good or bad, about the world of professional wrestling. So if you want to be part of next week's hot takes video, make sure that you're following me on X. I ask for your hot take on there every single Friday. As always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And I've got some good videos planned for WrestleMania week, so make sure you're subscribed. All right, let's read some stupid shit. LA Knight not being involved in the United States title match at WrestleMania has low-key been a blessing. This AJ Styles feud has been great even with the little time that they've had, and it will give LA Knight a huge win at WrestleMania, then he can go after a title at SummerSlam. I appreciate the LA Knight positivity with this feud because I'm still seeing a lot of people online yapping and blabbing about how this is a waste of LA Knight's time. Are you kidding me? A feud with AJ Styles, one of the most popular WWE superstars of the last 10 years, one of the greatest individual performers in the history of this sport. Are you serious? A waste of LA Knight's time? Absolutely. Nah. This is the complete opposite. It's LA Knight's biggest match in the biggest platform that he's ever had. And to have a dancing partner like AJ Styles is an absolute vote of confidence from the WWE that you are one of their top guys. It doesn't always have to be about titles. Don't get me wrong. Me and you and so many other people did romanticize the idea of him going up against Logan Paul for the United States Championship, but I'm sure that's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point or another. LA Knight will win gold, but in the meantime, we're getting a really good feud here. A feud that didn't just blossom out of nowhere, a feud that they've actually been building up for months. This has been very good long-term storytelling without it being 3 years long like the Bloodline. This has had a really great gradual buildup and has had some really great segments like the home invasion and LA Knight dressing up like as a security guard to trick AJ Styles. It's been really great. But again, when people romanticize and fall in love with one particular idea, they refuse to really pry themselves from that idea, and anything else that isn't that particular idea is garbage in their eyes, and to me, that's stupid. Jade Cargill has the most aura in all of women's wrestling. I mean, not just women's wrestling, I feel like she's up there in conversation with some of the biggest aura in just professional wrestling in general. There's only a couple of the men that I could perhaps list above her, maybe like The Rock right now and Roman Reigns. I can't really think of many other people that have this level of aura. And when it comes to the women, I do believe that in terms of quote aura, she does absolutely dwarf everyone else. I do feel like somebody having this aura, it's a difficult thing to describe. It's just something that you just have to experience. Has been few and far between with women in the WWE. I feel like the last time that we had this type of special feeling aura, oh my goodness, this is a special thing that we're witnessing. You may laugh at it, but it was Ronda Rousey when she initially came into the WWE and brought that aura of legitimacy to the women's division. And even then, I still think that Jade Cargill, the aura and presentation that she brings is still leagues above what Ronda Rousey brought. I'm just glad that she's in the WWE. I do think that they were using her quite well in AEW, but I also believe that this was a huge fumble on AEW's part to let Jade Cargill fall in the hands of the WWE like this. Dragon Lee to the Latino World Order worries me, not because him or the group. I'm sure he'll do great in the role, but I feel like a solo run would do him better than joining a faction this early in his career, especially one that struggled to get over until just now. I do think that's a fair point, but I'm going to counter and say that it seems like they had no interest in a singles run for Dragon Lee in the main roster because he completely disappeared during his singles run on SmackDown. They sent him back down to NXT to go have a singles run over there. And it does seem to me at the very least like the WWE is realizing that sometimes sink or swim and being by yourself with every single NXT call-up doesn't necessarily work. Look at Cameron Grimes and look at somebody like Tyler Bate. I don't think that either of them necessarily are way more popular than the other. I believe in terms of talent that Tyler Bate is better, but I feel like the WWE learned from what they saw with Cameron Grimes that he just drowned by himself in the main roster. Meanwhile, Tyler Bate, they put him with Pete Dunne. Yes, a lot of people want them to be single stars, and they absolutely can can be, but right now they're getting to flourish and float above water by being together as part of a unit than trying to have to get over by themselves. And that's, I think, the strategy that they're now going to take with Dragon Lee, because even though a lot of us do find Dragon Lee incredibly entertaining and a very good performer, he just wasn't connecting yet with the main roster crowd. So pairing him with a familiar group of people that we are already familiar with, that are already over, even if it's just recently, I do think is going to help Dragon Lee in the long run, as opposed to just throwing him to the wolves and asking him to do it by himself. And frankly, Dragon Lee's biggest gap right now as a performer is his microphone skills. So being part of a group where there is a mouthpiece like Rey Mysterio, Carlito can be the mouthpiece, Zelina Vega can be the mouthpiece, we can mask some of those gaps that he has and let him develop those gaps into strengths slowly, as opposed to making those gaps glaringly obvious when he's by himself. So I think it's a good call to have him be part of a grander group right now. Do you want even more wrestling content? Because I'm going to give you even more wrestling content over on Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. You're going to get the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier than everyone else. The Raw reviews, the most recent SmackDown review is about to go up as well. And you're going to be getting some watch-alongs of WrestleMania 27 and WrestleMania 30 this week. So come check it out, patreon.com/SantiZap. It will be the top link in the description, or it'll be the link in the pinned comment. Back to the video. If we could have another title for the women, even if it's for NXT, we could have way more storylines for women, since WWE is against having non-title women feuds. It does sort of seem that the WWE is a bit more trepidatious and cautious when it comes to having non-title feuds for women. I think the last really notable one was Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus, but that's between two legends of the business, so you can get away with that. But it seems like the WWE has been pretty set in their ways of, if we're going to have a feud between the women, if it's going to be a premium live event worthy feud, it needs to have some title involved. So if that's the case, if that's what they want to continue to push forward with, then I do think that you're right. I do believe that now there is enough room to have a mid-card title. You mentioned NXT. Maybe it could be like the women's tag titles where it's defended everywhere. Maybe it's a women's mid-card intercontinental championship that gets defended on Raw, SmackDown, and even NXT, to do like what you're saying, give more women an opportunity to have narratives and have on-screen matches with proper stakes, and matches that are worthy enough to develop a story around for premium live events. Because it seems when there's no gold on the line, and if you aren't already a megastar, you aren't gonna be making it into the premium live events. The heist of the century is only relevant because it happened in the main event of WrestleMania, and Dolph's was better. Had Seth's happened on a random Raw/SmackDown, it wouldn't have had as much hype. You said it yourself, the Raw after WrestleMania video, Ziggler's pop was monumental. I will counter with your same argument and say that Ziggler's cash-in is only relevant because it happened on the Raw after WrestleMania in front of a crowd that gave him the largest pop. So I can use your same logic against you. Now let's go back to what you said, that it's only relevant because it happened at WrestleMania. No, it's extra special that it happened at WrestleMania, but it's also relevant because it also created the future megastar of Seth Rollins. It was a cash-in between two main eventers, two top of the line, big, medium, top of the food chain guys, and Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and it blocked Roman Reigns from becoming this inevitable champion that everyone hated. There is so much more than it just being because it happened at WrestleMania, that's the only reason that it's relevant. It's absolutely not true. But again, if I use the same logic against you, if the Dolph Ziggler cash-in had it just happened on a random episode of Raw or SmackDown, it wouldn't have been as special. You see, when we try to ruin things with hindsight, then we just get into this kind of ridiculous circle of just going back and forth. Just let things be. The heist of the century is fucking awesome, okay? Jade Cargill has been bigger for WWE than Mercedes for AEW. That's kind of crazy that we're already saying that, with Jade Cargill having only really made one major appearance on free television, not including her Royal Rumble appearance. Me personally, I've watched both because I tuned in to AEW specifically to watch Mercedes's debut at AEW Big Business. And I also just recently watched Jade Cargill. And I gotta say, I'm still talking about the Jade Cargill debut, and I'm not really going back to talk about the Mercedes Moné debut. So I don't know if it's necessarily right what you're saying, because I still think it's way too early. But right now, I think there's just more buzz for Jade Cargill. Gunther is overrated. He can wrestle like everyone else on the roster. He's not what everyone makes him out to be. He isn't a bad wrestler, but he isn't the greatest wrestler on the roster like everyone overhypes him to be. All right, so if he is a wrestler like everyone else, why isn't everyone else always having the best match of the night? Why isn't everyone else having multiple 5-star matches throughout the year? Why isn't everyone else getting the same level of, as you're saying, overhype as Gunther has? It's because Gunther is objectively very, very good. Pulling out a 5-star match with The Miz. Yeah, sure, The Miz has had great matches in the past, but not as good as what he put on with Gunther. And I'm telling you, it's not because The Miz has gotten better, it's because of Gunther. We had a 5-star match, multiple 5-star matches with Chad Gable. Of course, Chad Gable is very good, but when was the last time you saw a Chad Gable match as good as the ones with Gunther? Because Gunther, even if there are other really good wrestlers, he brings the best out of them. Look at Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Their last best match was all against Gunther. Yes, they're both great in their own right, but it always comes back to Gunther getting the best out of everyone around him, while of course himself being a great performer. I feel like you're baiting for the sake of bait. Gunther is not overrated. Gunther is one of the best performers on the planet. Cody Crybaby saved WrestleMania. The Rock is elevating it, and Roman Reigns is absolutely doing nothing. I mean, do I disagree with you? Not really. I think you're kind of right. I do think when we look at the Cody Crybabies, they're the ones that steered the ship in the right direction. And The Rock is like, okay, I guess this is the direction that we're going in. I'm going to dive into this 3,000% and make this the most hype thing that I could possibly do. And he's done all that. And Roman Reigns has done, admittedly, more or less nothing to get us excited for anything that he's involved in. For the main event of night 2 between him and Cody Rhodes, he's barely put in any legwork. I'm not really particularly that hyped. If I'm hyped for it, it's because of what Cody Rhodes has done. If we look at the main event of night 1, all of the hype has been done by The Rock, Cody, and even Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns has just sort of been a background character in all this. You're kind of right here. People are complaining about the build-up to WrestleMania, but I really believe it's one of the best built WrestleManias of all time. I haven't seen too many people complain about the build-up of this year's WrestleMania. I think that it's one of the best built WrestleManias of all time. I think that the night 1 main event is the greatest built night 1 main event of all time. Nay, the greatest built WrestleMania match of all time in terms of all of what they've done, all of the tender love and care that they've put in towards this feud. I can't think of an individual WrestleMania match that's gotten this much attention at WrestleMania before. Ever. Seriously, genuinely. There are a couple people that are complaining about like certain individual matches and of course about the poor night 2 main event build, and I do agree with that. I do believe that the night 2 main event has been very poorly scheduled and built, but overall I think that when I look at, from bell to bell, the hype that they've created, I think it's very hype. Getting a WWE Speed Championship before a women's mid-card championship gives us a not so good look as to where TKO's priorities lie. I think this Speed Championship thing has been in the works for quite a while, even pre-TKO, but I do think that it's weird that they're going to have a championship belt for this. I wouldn't be surprised if this championship belt never makes an appearance on television. I wouldn't be surprised if this championship belt is exclusively for WWE.com, for Twitter or Instagram posts or TikTok. I don't see how a Speed Championship fits into the mold of WWE narrative and television for things like Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. I don't think that it's going to be a real championship that people really properly keep track of in terms of reigns. I think that they should focus on bringing a mid-card intercontinental championship for the women's. And when that does inevitably come around, that is going to have an impact on WWE television, which is why, even though to me this is an irrelevant championship, it makes sense as to why it was pushed so quickly, because I just don't think that it's going to have that big of an impact, and I don't think that they're going to need to book a narrative around it. Randy Orton or John Cena should have been in the tag team match with Cody instead of Seth Rollins. I think you can make a really great case for either Randy Orton or John Cena. I think you can make the best case for Randy Orton because Randy has that great history with Cody Rhodes. Randy Orton still has that beef, of course, with Roman Reigns, so it would have made sense, but they ended up going with Seth Rollins, but Seth Rollins also works because of more or less the same reasons that Randy Orton works, and he has he has his history with Seth Rollins. He has his history with Roman Reigns, of course, that dates back all the way to like 2013. So, all the cases that I can make for Randy Orton and John Cena, I can make for Seth Rollins as well. So the wait for Jade Cargill was completely worth it. Fans want things right then and right there. It takes time for greatness to be formed. I think it's okay for fans to want things right then and right there when they make sense. But when there is a very obvious need to let something build, or as people are saying these days, let something cook, then we should be more patient. The Jade Cargill thing was a little bit weird for me because they presented her as if she was the right there and the right now of the WWE with how they rolled out the red carpet for her. So I do think that there was some justification and concern from fans to be in and asking where the hell is Jade Cargill. But, with hindsight now being our ally, we can look back and see that, yeah, I think that this wait did ultimately help Jade Cargill's hype overall. But I don't necessarily think that there is anything wrong with wanting something in the moment when it makes sense in the moment. Sometimes it doesn't always make sense to drag something out for the sake of dragging it out. I feel like WWE is transitioning to a new era. What should we call it? I've heard the global era, but I've come up with the revival era. In my circles and what I've been seeing online, I've been seeing the Renaissance era, which I kind of like because it's kind of like a rebirth, WWE getting better, or WWE pushing past the dark ages, which is what the real Renaissance era is in the 15 and 1400s or whatever the hell the actual Renaissance era took place. So I like the Renaissance era because it's like leaving the dark ages of Vince McMahon behind and then flourishing with new methods of production, new forms of storytelling, promos, and match quality. NXT should bring back the takeover events. Some of the greatest moments and matches in NXT history happened at those events. I mean, TakeOver is just a moniker. It's just a name. NXT already does these PLEs that are their takeovers that are fantastic and sometimes just as good as some of the past takeovers in the past. If people just give NXT a chance, I'm telling you, you're going to like what you're going to see. We're going to have a fantastic NXT Stand and Deliver. I don't think that it would be made better if it was called NXT Takeover Stand and Deliver. I think we're past the takeover name. To me, it has a lot of great nostalgia and I have a lot of great memories for it, but I don't think that the name necessarily made it good. I still think that Latino World Order versus Legado del Fantasma should have been the match for WrestleMania. Once I saw both teams in the ring on SmackDown, I was actually hyped. I agree with you. In my reactions, I said, oh my God, I'm actually hyped for this. When I looked at everyone that was in the ring, yes, there were the kingpins, right? There were the characters that I really cared about in the Santos, the Dominics, the Carlito, the Rey Mysterio. But then I saw all of the auxiliary characters and I was super hyped because we had people that we cared about, but also great young performers that could put on a fantastic match. So we could have had the best of both worlds. We could have had narrative that we cared about, characters that we cared about, plus just insane high-flying, super fast octane in-ring action. And I do think that we're kind of robbing ourselves of that by just making it a tag match and just a simple 2-on-2. I'm sure it'll eventually divulge and break up into this big war between the two anyhow, but I do think that the rest of the members of the LWO and Legado del Fantasma earned their keep and deserve their WrestleMania match. Chad Gable will turn heel on Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen at WrestleMania, but if it does happen, I cannot wait for Perk Chad Gable because he will be so good. I would love for him to move away from Alpha Academy, give us a more intense, super hype version of himself where he is just breaking people's ankles. I would love to see that personally. Carlito will turn heel and cost the LWO at WrestleMania. The writing was on the wall after their segment. It could bring back Carlito to his natural habitat. Babyface Carlito, can we just say it? Hasn't worked. This Carlito that isn't stabbing people in the back, this Carlito that isn't out for his own personal gain, this Carlito without his proper heel entrance theme hasn't worked. And I think that actually this is a perfect place for him to turn heel and for us to finally get the Rey Mysterio versus Carlito feud that we've been wanting for a really, really long time. And to me, when you go back and watch that episode of SmackDown, it looked like Carlito seemed a little bit pissed that it wasn't him in the tag match at WrestleMania. WWE would still be as bad as it was in the 2010s without AEW existing. Sure, maybe. I don't actually know, but the truth of the matter is that in business, competition always gives us the best product because it's just companies trying to outdo each other for everyone's business and everyone's attention. And if AEW wasn't around and WWE was just the only game in town, then yeah, they might just be coasting like they did throughout the 2010s when they didn't really have any competition. On top of that, not only do they have competition in terms of product, they have competition in terms of winning free agents and potentially not only now are the WWE the ones poaching talent, now we have AEW with enough cash to poach talent from the WWE, which could force the WWE to create better working conditions for their employees and pay them better, which is a good thing. So overall, the existence of AEW has been a blessing. This is The Rock's best acting, period. Movies and former gimmicks included. So much better than generic Jungle Rock or whatever he was in Fast and the Furious franchise. In the most recent episode of Wrestling is Cool, the podcast that I have, one of the things that I said is that I would love to see The Rock in a Hollywood movie with this evil character. I would love for The Rock to expand to not always necessarily be the superhero, the good guy, the guy that saves the day. I would love for him to be the menacing evil dude because we clearly know that he's capable of it. We know that he can be the final boss. So I'm very curious what a Hollywood movie could look like with The Rock embracing that side of his acting, because I'm kind of with you. This has been the most interesting acting that The Rock has ever given us. I don't necessarily think it's the best Rock ever because I do think that the comedic version of 2003 Hollywood Rock also gave us a really different dynamic of The Rock that has really lasted the test of time. But this evil Rock, I want to see more of this in a bigger, more expanded universe, like in a Hollywood movie. Damian Priest should cash in on Cody after he pins Roman, making Cody's story mirror Dusty's by winning and immediately losing it. Also a way to solidify Damian Priest's ultimate heel status. But is Damian Priest really worthy of ultimate heel? I don't think so. Look, I'm not against at some point Damian Priest cashing in on Cody Rhodes, but do you really, genuinely, from the bottom of your heart, foresee a world where Damian Priest is standing tall closing WrestleMania with all of the pyro? Cause I don't. Rhea Ripley will be a face by the end of the calendar year. She is too loved by the WWE universe. I could see that. However, I'd like to see an interesting dynamic take place. I would love for Rhea Ripley to be a babyface and stay in her heel faction. I think it could create some really fun inter-dynamics within the Judgment Day and create a dynamic of a super over babyface who works alongside all of these heels that is really unique that we haven't seen in a really, really long time. I'd be down for a heel Judgment Day, but a babyface Rhea Ripley. I think that could be really interesting. All right, folks, those are the hot takes for this week. Let me know what you feel I was completely off on. And of course, don't forget to leave your hot takes in the comment section down below. That's it. I'm done. Get out of here.